He has these, let's say, life energy generators, or I would say accumulators or batteries. So it was his favorite trick to catch a fly, remove the head, and put the corpse into these machines, and they were moving, let's say, days after their head were cut off, while the rest of the a similar fly without a head died within a couple of minutes. Insects were unable to live and live, while in his device they were alive, let's say, for a day or so. Usually I visited him for a day, that's it. And pieces of plants, let's say a piece of grass blade, a small piece which he put into these activating holes, were kept alive indefinitely.
So, can you please tell us who you are and just give a little information on your background as a nuclear physicist?
I'm in fact a nuclear engineer. I was interested in and involved in the calculation of nuclear accidents, blowdowns, in the Hungarian Academy of Sciences nuclear engineering department of thermohydraulics, and in this context I used to work at the Brookhaven National Lab for 1.5 years, and at CISA and in other institutions. However, I became disillusioned with the nuclear industry. I consider it as a waste of time and resources, because uranium-based nuclear reactors are wasteful, extremely expensive. So my idea was to have a closer look at nature, because Mother Nature is much more efficient than nuclear reactors. That's it.
Can you describe your experiments with Pavlita and some of the results and the implications they might have today?
Actually, most of the tangible test results are online, available on my homepage, and it is the only scientifically tested results. His main achievements were twofold. On the one hand, he was able to influence the magnetic properties of practically all kinds of organic and non-organic, unorganic materials on an entirely unexpected, crazy way.
What you saw first, it was normal magnetic effect, yes? And here you see it is magnet, little magnet in inner. Yes, and now we create this magnetic anomaly. It means, teď můžeš teda udělat tu anomálii, when he push out this magnet, it will attract. Attract, yes? You will see to.
Přitáhne. Tak to je jiží.
This is south.
A jiží se přitahuje.
Attraction. There is attraction now. Yes.
A jiží.
And south pole.
Jo. A jiží.
South.
Se přitahuje.
No, it is attraction. No.
Když zasunu tam dovnitř.
When this is pushed in the inner,
tak přijde sem a objde mě, pak to je síť.
But it is not now normal magnetic effect, of course. Yes?
To už není teď normální.
No říkám, it is this magnetic anomaly.
And those test results are available, as I mentioned, on the web page. And he was able to influence the magnetic properties of wood, non-metals, crystals, whatever. But I have to mention that those were absolutely influenced by an unknown method. He was touching his forehead with a so-called sonda, as he told, and then he used a version of this kind of heavy steel slab. There were bores on this machine. It was mounted on a magnet, and it was necessary to turn the device to and fro, and kind of very unusual magnetic pulses were generated, but I use the word magnetic just out of convenience, because what he was able to achieve were not magnetic in the strict sense of this word, definitely not.
How do you believe he came across this method? I've seen some people saying that he was influenced by reading alchemy books.
That is true. That is, at least he told to me, that Prague has a very ancient library, and he was an avid reader of these texts, but he never specified which text, how, and so on. So he was maybe overblowing this kind of stuff. My major problem was with him that he never spoke any language apart from Czech, so we were unable to communicate directly, only with the help of his daughter Jana. Between the Czech and the Hungarian, there was an English translation. We were able to communicate only in English, but nevertheless, he was secretive. That was his major problem. He never wanted to disclose even the most simple of his method. But even worse, that he was not a methodical experimenter, but a kind of backyard inventor who just made a trial and error, and he was never systematic. His other problem, that these phenomena were so unusual, so university crowd never helped him. We were the only guys who did these tests here in Budapest, in Hungary, only on weekends. I invited him maybe 4 times, and out of these 4 occasions, only 1 test series have been exceedingly successful. The rest were not successful at all. And then the results were not repeatable or much weaker. There were some results, but much weaker. So he was really sensitive to changes in weather. So when a hot weather front came or a rainy period, his power just diminished.
We can start?
Yes.
Tak můžeš začít.
Začít?
Jo.
The Czech Minister of Education, Professor, I'm going to butcher his name, Kahuda,
Yes.
he described psychotronics as a science, as psychoenergetics, and he was really promoting it, but the field just kind of dried up. Is there any, were they officially studying it at all?
Actually, there was a very small research station of meteorology somewhere near to Bratislava, but it was a 2 or 3 man effort, and it was a very small group, and they were studying actually dowsing, but not the Pavlita stuff. The Pavlita stuff needed actually quite expensive large instrument, this vibration magnetometer, and we never had access, for example, to other test devices to measure exactly the dielectric properties of the influence matter. It might have been interesting also to measure these dielectric constant changes in it, or let's say specific heat or whatever, or electrical conductivity. There were other possible venues of research. Simply we had no access to these test devices, simply because my friend and co-author Gábor Vértesi was kind enough to offer his assistance during the weekend, and he had access for a while to these large and expensive devices, but the rest of the solid state community in our lab didn't give a damn about it. They were not interested in it.
It's kind of sad because there was a lot of potential there if Pavlita ever gave any of his secrets up. The name, I'm going to butcher this name, Zdenek, Rejak, R-E-J-D-A-K? Rejdak. It keeps coming up when I read articles about this. Apparently he was a very respected scientist, but most info on him stops just in the 90s. Did anything ever become of him?
I met him on these so-called Psychotronics conferences. Actually, when I returned from Brookhaven, I returned some 2 years later to the United States to a conference on nuclear accidents and so on. Then I went to in New York to Eileen Garrett Library, and there I read a pamphlet about this Czech Psychotronics Society, so I was able to contact them, not directly, but via the United States, quite strange enough. In Hungary, this subject was entirely forbidden, and it is still forbidden, simply a courtesy of the Reactionary Academy of Sciences here in Hungary. That's it. In Poland or in Romania or in the USSR, they were not so restrictive, only here.
Docent Krmeszki jest zdania, że jest to istotnie zjawisko, którego fizyka nie zna. Powinno się zbadać przyczyny oglądanych tu zjawisk. Sądzi, że ich wyjaśnienie powinno się znaleźć w zakresie fizyki kwantowej. Dr Rejdak podkreśla znaczenie badań Roberta Pavlity. Robert Pavlita, dziękując specjalistom za wnikliwą ekspertyzę, oświadcza, że przez 30 lat usilnie dążył do tego, aby wyeliminować wszelkie znane nauce wpływy fizyczne zakłócające przebieg nowo odkrytego zjawiska. Pragnąłby, aby świat naukowy zainteresował się jego odkryciem.
And one of the things I noticed in the book, Parapsychology, they did a lot of talking about pyramid power. And
pyramid power is not a stupid thing. I have seen experiments done here in Hungary in the recent years when inside the pyramid temperature changes were recorded. If you are interested, I can give you the phone of my colleague who lives in Paks, some 150 kilometers, who speaks English in an excellent manner. You may call him, he will be glad to see you and talk about his test results. So the pyramid stuff is real, absolutely real in my opinion. And this guy Zoltán Kiss is an excellent and experienced researcher. Unfortunately, nobody is familiar with his theoretical work and experimental work. He published lots of books on this subject in English. It is worth reading, but I was unable to understand it. But he studied nuclear physics. Actually, he was an engineer at the Pak's nuclear power plant. He's a skilled experimenter. It is worth contacting him.
This will be a small impact because I need 36 volt for this. But if I switch on, okay, this is in that case not attracting, blow away. Look, you see?
It's pushing away.
Pushing away. A magnet, and this is a iron ring. It's not about. I now switch off, and now I'm switching on. I'm switching off and switching on. So something electromagnet which is pushing, not attracting, because of certain wiring and because of certain quantum impact inside, because it's a quantum impact.
Just a few more questions. I noticed on your website most of these books are in Hungarian, but you wrote some on ball lightning and the science of mysterious forces, and it looked like the title was Ball Lightning, the Key to the Fourth Dimension. And I'm just wondering, because I saw some of the videos you did on ball lightning, but I wasn't able to understand them. What kind of work have you done with that, and do you think it relates to Pavlita's work at all?
In a remote or distant sense, yes. Ball lightning, for me, it's not a three but a four space dimensional phenomena. It does all kind of strange stuff. Actually, it violates all the conservation principles, and we can get out of this mess only and only if we assume that there is a fourth space dimension. Then all this weird stuff becomes just simple and straightforward, but you have to assume that there is an additional space dimension which is not forbidden by physics at all, but they were just not looking after nature whether is there any experimental proof for it or not.
Sérülés?
Igen.
És azt mondod, hogy később észrevetted, hogy még?
A fejemben ugyanilyen körben kijött a hava.
So, ball lightning proves in a sense that an extra space dimension effect exists, and Pavlita proved that magnetic properties can be influenced in a very strange manner by living beings. And the connection is that in some rare cases when ball lightning eyewitnesses reported it, they, for example, reported that after ball lightning hit the soil, it became magnetic very strongly for a while. And after 2 hours, it just disappeared, just the same as with Pavlita. So, in my opinion, life is practically four space dimensional phenomena. There are some, again, indirect evidence for it. For example, life after death experience. Some people describe that they are looking from above their bodies as an out-of-body experience. So they do report frequently actually four space-dimensional phenomena, though witnesses are just amazed and they don't have the necessary scientific background to describe that their personality is in the fourth space dimension, in fact.
Would there be something to say about remote viewing in that? If you can, because if you can view it from above, could you view it from elsewhere?
Yes, I think there is a distant logical relation between remote viewing and this phenomenon, definitely. So they are related, not directly, but to one or two steps, definitely.
Do you think Pavlita's work is worth looking into or continuing? Do you think it might be possible to ever rediscover what he did?
In my definite opinion, it was so off the Broadway show, let's say, that nobody in his right mind will discover it, and there should be such a lucky accident to get it again that I doubt that. I think he took his secret to the grave and it will remain there forever. The train has gone and the rails were removed. So this kind of very important, potentially very useful insight to the mechanism of life has been lost forever.
It's very sad.
That's it.
I guess just one final question. I noticed in some of the videos of Pavlita that he had a sort of, it looked similar to the energy wheel, the Egely, is that, I hope I'm not pronouncing your name wrong, the Egely, the energy meter. Did you take any influence from him?
Actually, I think we had a common root because this phenomena have been discovered some 100 years ago. But independently, several guys discovered it. My root came from table tipping, actually. Table tipping of the Fox sisters in the United States some nearly 200 years ago. They realized that tables were tipping around, so making circles. And I read in the Aileen Garrett Library and in the SPR Library in London lots of observation of this table tilting phenomena. So my inspiration came from there, that from these old 100 or 200 years old observations. Then I made a little abstract model how the physics of this table tipping works, and I concluded that if it has been possible then, it should be possible now. And I started my experiments influencing the movement of water, actually, because it is very inexpensive and cheap to rotate or to move water in a petri dish. And this was my start, and after I contacted Pavlita, and I was surprised that he came to the same conclusions. I was really happy. And then after I read a very interesting little paper that somebody in the Czech Republic had a so-called party trick, that they had champagne glasses, you see, wide and shallow with lots of bubbles in the champagne, and he was able to rotate it and have a look to the bubbles which started from the bottom. And these guys discovered also that champagne starts to rotate the liquid, and that is again an independent observation. So there are several independent discoveries on this subject, but nobody bothered actually to make an industrially mass-produced device except me. That is the story. So the road has been opened some 200 years ago, but nobody bothered about it.